Hi everyone, I'm Victor Doko, financial planner at TFV Services. Today I will be talking about how we helped a client with an SMSF account, investor funds, and educated them on a few things. And that's just to ensure you're making the right decisions. So I will share my screen. This client is a couple. So client 1, 53, client 2, 53 years old as well. They had $850,000 in the superannuation account already in an established SMSF. However, it was just in cash. So one of the things we had to do straight away is educate them on why we should be moving that away from cash, because there's still a few years, a decade plus away from retirement. So they came in with a few goals. I'll skip over those goals and go to the main one about the SMSF. The main goal with the SMSF was just to have enough for when they retire. They wanted about $100,000 per annum throughout their life expectancy when they retire. Okay, so we just had to make that money work a lot harder. So in about 15 years' time, they can have enough of what they need. So in terms of what we did, so we utilized some of the SMSF cash to establish an investment platform. And in that, we also talked about purchase of a property, because the client likes property and they wanted to purchase something. In terms of investing fund, we invested it via separately managed accounts, and we added some themes to that. So separately managed accounts are good because you have direct ownership of whatever investment we make. For example, if we invest in Commonwealth Bank, the SMSF has direct ownership of that. So you get dividends and you can also claim some imputation credits as well. So that works very well for SMSF accounts. In regards to SMSF as well, we also want to ensure there is a cash management account. And in that cash management account, we want to ensure you have a reserve just in case things come up and we need some cash, renovations for the house, or just some normal SMSF expenses. If you're unable to rent the house for a month, that money needs to come from somewhere. If you're transitioning between jobs, and no salary guarantee comes in a month, we also need to make sure you have funds for that. Because the last thing we want is for you to sell an asset when you need cash because you don't have a cash reserve, or for you to sell the shares at a low point in the market when you need some cash. So based on the strategy, we will potentially increase the balance by $1.6 million compared to if it was left in cash. Obviously, cash is just not a good investment option for someone that still has 10 plus years for retirement. Even people in retirement as well, you don't want to leave your money in cash. There are other more conservative options that money can be put into. So you can see that's just an estimation or projection. Ideally, I always tell clients as well, that straight line is not a straight line in reality. It wiggles up and down due to volatility, but that's where we can manage that and potentially take advantage of some buying scenarios if the opportunity arises. So one of the few things I'll drill down into as well is just a few things that people think about SMSFs, but hopefully some education will really help you understand why that may not be ideal. I'll skip over this goal as well because this is just talking about the limited recourse borrowing arrangement. Okay, so common strategies in an SMSF that are not always ideal. So people love Australian stocks, especially in SMSF. They say they can get the dividends and they also get dividends imputation. One of the reasons this may not be ideal is if we go down to, I just pulled this from Vanguard Digital Index chart, just as a guide. And if we look over the last 10 years, you can see the returns here for different asset classes. So Australian shares, about 8.3%, international shares, 12.7%, and that's on average. So going back to why it may not be ideal to just have Australian stocks. As you can see, Australian stocks haven't done as well as international shares. And let's assume this is without the imputation credits, which it will be. And we'll make some assumptions just to make this explanation clear. But let's assume 50% of this is dividends you get. So about 4.15%. is dividends. And that return means that you're going to get imputational credits, because usually in an SMSF, you'll pay 15% taxes. The company who is giving you these dividends has paid 30% taxes. So the government has said they'll refund 15% to you, which is great. So using that 4.15% as an example, they will be returning 15% of that back to you, you know? So let's even assume it's 20% that is returned back to you. 20% of 4.15% is roughly about 0.83%. So if we add 0.83% back to this, you're still nowhere close to what you'd have gotten if you had some investments in international shares or US shares. So when I explain to people that, look, we want to be diversified, first of all, and if you just concentrate your investments in Australian stocks, you will not get as much returns as you should be getting from international stocks over time. You know, compared to the international market, the Australian market is very small, you know, so that's one of the misconceptions. Usually, once you see money coming into your account, there's an emotional benefit you have from that because you're actually getting money in. However, lots of this will be in capital gains. And you also, yes, it doesn't give you that emotional benefit, but it generally helps because you get more money end of the day. And I think most people with an SMSF or with your super trying to maximize the return so they can have a very good retirement. So that's one of the things that I always like drawing people's attention, that look, generally international stocks, US stocks can do better over time. You know, even just looking at US, that's double that. So literally the opportunity cost is you have not gotten about 8% return just because you concentrated your position in Australian stocks. That's one of the misconceptions that I like explaining to people. And I always preach diversification. So I want a good balance because those returns fluctuate every year. And yes, Australian stocks may do better in 1 year, but international stocks may do better in another year. However, over time, international stocks have shown to do better than Australian stocks. Another misconception is banks are safe. And yes, that may be true for now. But however, there's that opportunity cost, you know, because there is that huge return you could be getting from international stocks or US stocks. Another misconception is property always does better than shares. And no, it doesn't. One of the reasons property does better than shares is because of the debt you have in it. So if you consider what happens in a normal property purchase transaction, you only put about 20% down, the bank gives you 80%. So literally you are getting 4 times what you're putting down as a deposit by the bank. So literally you're gearing by, 4 times. And just using all these returns as an example, if you gear any of this by even just 50% or 100%, if you gear by 100%, you can expect your returns to double because that means you're putting double the amount. This is excluding any interest rates you would have to pay on whatever gearing method you use. So there are ways to gear stocks, there are ways to gear other asset classes that can give you a return. Obviously, one of the benefits of property is you can gear as much as 4 times. However, that shouldn't be an excuse for you to put all your assets in put all your funds into the one asset class. So you want to definitely diversify. So generally people can have 1 or 2 properties, but I always preach about slowly diversifying and building on stocks. And even within an SMSF as well, you can still gear your stock position. Okay. And yes, with that level of debt, property can do better, but that is a very concentrated position because if anything happens to that property, you will be in a very unhappy stage. So those are the few strategies that I like explaining to people. And look, we preach diversification. So yes, if you have 20 years to really pay off the debt and potentially have a property, then that may work, but it's good to diversify along the way. And some properties have lost value, even in this property market that is doing very well. So it just depends on if you buy well. And even if you buy well, there have been times when the general market has dropped as well. So like and follow, ask any questions. This is just an educational video to ensure people really understand what you're getting into, and follow for more educational content.